start by turning the clock back 60 years. In 1958, there was a conference in Vancouver, and Marshall McLuhan, who had been an English professor and had become a communications theorist, said, "The medium is the message." Those words have resounded ever since. The medium is the message. They made a big stir in the 60s when he published his book, which also included this statement. The medium is the message. And people began to rethink how we communicate with each other. It was before internet times, but McLuhan already had a foresight into what was happening in human nature, in humanity in general, and the use of technology. But he tried to warn people that we can't divorce the content from the medium. Whether you use language or art or theatre or dance or IT, there was always that sense that somehow how we expose ourselves and communicate with each other and express our feelings and thoughts, the medium we actually use has a relationship to what we're saying and how we say it. The two are implicitly bound together. And this was his message way back then. And he said, I'm not talking about technology, just that. I'm talking about our human environment, our milieu, the world we live in, and how we communicate. Nowadays, when we use the word media, what springs to mind is IT, or the press. There's where they use the word media. But of course, it surrounds us all. And as McLuhan said, it is an extension of our humanity, the media. It's the way we meet others in these many different realms and many parts of them. What we do find, though, it works the other way too. The media changes how we see ourselves too. And that's why we have to be so conscious of it, especially when working with children. Just think of the expressions in English. He's gone off the rails. He's letting off steam. I'm under great pressure. These are all metaphors from the age of the steam engine. People began to see themselves as related to the technology that they used. The steam engine entered into our consciousness, not just something we invented to transport whatever, but somehow it became part of us. And we use this expression still today, 200 years later. 200 years in a couple of years' time, 1825. It's extraordinary. So there's a relationship between our souls and how we use to express ourselves. And that can change our conception of ourselves at the same time. And so McLuhan said it's a human extension. But to extend ourselves, we also have to know who we are. And that's where the education comes in. I think it's so important what Paula will bring today. That what is the awareness of being a child? What is the meaning of being a child when confronted with these different ways of media, of expression? So I'd like to welcome you and our friendly MEP, Mr. Negrescu. Would you like to continue, please?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I don't know if I need to use a mic or not. It will be good.
Oh, I see.
Should I stand up? I can stand up as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here again for the Lifelong Learning Week. And of course, it's good that we have today an in-person meeting discussing about such an important topic. Of course, referring, of course, to childhood, to education, to media literacy, to digital literacy. Those are indeed important topics for us also in the European Parliament. For those of you that do not know me, I'm the Vice Chair of the Culture and Education Committee in the European Parliament. I'm also co-chairing the European Education Alliance. And of course, I'm a professor, but also I'm a parent. And I was listening to you, Christopher, earlier, mentioning the fact that today we are using, of course, terms that are very much linked to our own personal experiences. And indeed, of course, when speaking to children today, they are also using terms, concepts, words that are specific to their to what they are doing today. And most of those are coming from the digital environment. And I was remembering a discussion that I had a couple of weeks ago with my child. I have a boy who's 10, and he often uses terms from social media, but also from the different games that he's playing. And sometimes he understands the meaning of those words, but sometimes he doesn't fully understand what stands behind them, but also doesn't know how to interpret the issues, the topics that he hears about in the online environment. So therefore, of course, this underlines once more why it is important for us to really tackle this issue in a coherent manner and to come up with adequate solutions to develop media literacy, digital education as such across Europe. And of course, there are different ways of doing that. You have discussed about it also during the previous conferences. We're going to hear a couple of ideas regarding this topic in the meeting that we're going to have today. But I want to underline a couple of key elements, in my opinion, with regard to this important issue. So first of all, we have to recognize the fact that everyone, really everyone, especially in Europe, is facing, of course, the risk of the online environment. And we're looking at data. 2/3 of Europeans have recognized during their presence in the online environment, have recognized fake news, and they were confronted, of course, with different situations with regards to bullying, cyberbullying, or different types of, let's say, spams, and other situation like that. So therefore, of course, there is a comprehensive awareness of the fact that we are confronted with risk, with dangers, with challenges for which we need to provide adequate solutions. So therefore, this gives us the opportunity to really come up with this issue on the table, in the public debate, in the decision-making process, because there is an interest around the need of identifying solutions to this type of challenges. In the same time, of course, the pandemic has shown us the benefits of digital education, but also the limits of digital education, and how we need to embrace all of that, how we need to integrate better, of course, digital tools in the in-person educational format, but also in the same time, how to better use the traditional formats of education in promoting and developing digital skills and media literacy. In the same time, of course, beyond this awareness, we have a key opportunity, which is recovery and resilience programs across Europe. And when looking at numbers, we see that member states have allocated around 10% of the recovery and resilience facilities for education. And you know probably that I was the one that registered the amendment recommending to member states to allocate at least 10% for education. And out of that 10%, I have here the numbers, a large part of the sums goes for digital education. So 30% of the money going for education goes to digital education, meaning roughly 40 billion euros are supposed to go to digital education. And this, of course, represents an opportunity, but also implies that we need to talk about how to do that, how to spend that money in a coherent way so we can have outcomes, tangible results, positive results when it comes to digital literacy, but also media literacy, when it comes to, teaching young people on how to manage their presence online, but also not only young people, adults as well, on how to do that in a coherent manner. So we have, again, awareness of the interest, we have the money for it. And now the big problem is the solutions. How to merge those two different positive features and of course focus all of that in a positive, constructive direction that will bring results. And here there are more difficulties because, again, there are different solutions that are presented by experts. We are going to see today a couple of solutions that are going to be presented by our guests. But nevertheless, we tend to have difficulties in reaching those outcomes. And this is why in the final part of my statement, I'm going to underline a couple of challenges for us to discuss about that. And I think this is also important. First challenge is how to have an integrated solution at European level. Because for the time being, we have recovery plans that are being implemented at national level, but there is no interlink between the actions that are being developed through those recovery plans when it comes to education, when it comes to media and digital literacy. So how to connect that, how to have a European approach, a European dimension, and of course, at the end, reach the outcomes and the target that we fix for ourselves at European level. This is the first challenge. The second challenge is how to use those opportunities and really generate results at local level, but also across Europe in the same time, at the same speed, with the same impact. We have wonderful positive examples in different places in Europe, in Denmark, in Spain, even in my country, Romania. But those positive examples tend to remain isolated or successful mainly at local or regional level. We have difficulties in upscaling them. We have difficulties, of course, in sharing the different experiences. And for that, again, at European level, we need to do more in this regard, in helping those positive examples to really have an impact. And in order to do that, we are facing a third challenge. So we put everyone together, we put the resources together. The third and one of the most significant challenge is to identify the activators, the facilitators that can deploy those solutions, those positive examples in a large extent across Europe and in all member states. Because what I noticed, and you can also maybe confirm that, is that usually those positive examples were generated by local NGOs, by local schools, by professors that get engaged, by parents, by young people. But they did that, generally speaking, on voluntary basis, and maybe after a while, they also managed to get some resources for that, but not enough. So we can identify, let's say, 5 activators in one country, 20 activators in one country, hundreds of activators across Europe, but that is not enough because we need thousands of activators and facilitators to actually have an impact across Europe when it comes to the objectives that we fix for ourselves at European level. So we need, of course, to develop this important network of facilitators and activators, people that can deploy the concrete actions that can involve the local community, that can involve the private sector in those communities, that can involve the local authorities. And of course, those activists do exist at the level of NGOs, do exist in schools, but we need to identify them, promote them, finance them, but also train them, which is not easy. So for that, again, there are challenges that needs to be identified as well. A fourth challenge is how do we make sure everyone is moving in the same time, at the same speed, and really are being committed in delivering on those results. This is why I'm a strong supporter of the need to integrate in a very comprehensive manner in the national reports that are being conducted by the European Commission, to introduce an extended evaluation of what's happening at the level of each member state. So we have now a bullet point on education in the European semester format in each member country. But this is not enough. We have to go beyond that. What is happening on media literacy? What is happening on digital education? What is happening on the implementation of the recovery plan? What is happening specifically at each level of education? Really a comprehensive report analysis of what is happening in each member state that can be, of course, published every year. Why it is important to have that? Because this will represent a key element in putting the pressure over national governments to actually deliver on those commitments that we fix for ourselves at European level. Because you know very well, we decided all together that by 2030, 80% of Europeans are going to be digital skilled. It's nice. But are we actually going to deliver on that? Are we going to have this being delivered across Europe? And we need to follow that very completely every year. And of course, when something gets published, decision makers, politicians, they pay more attention to that. So this is also important to do. Last but not least, the biggest challenge again is to really develop the ecosystem regarding this specific objective of media literacy. And we have to have a strong, sustainable, coherent ecosystem at European, national, but also local level. And this, again, is not easy. The European Commission launched different initiatives with regards to digital education, the digital education hubs, we have the stakeholders group, so forth. We need to replicate that, but also make sure that the process is being implemented coherently, and the quality of the process also is being evaluated as such. Therefore, in order to build this ecosystem, we need to interact more and listen to teachers, to young people, and listen to the parents as well, listen to the NGOs. We need to make sure that what is being decided in Brussels has also strong support at grassroots level, because otherwise it will not get implemented. Because some of the solutions that we provided at European level can be successful, but in order to actually reach the result, we need to make sure everyone is willing to get involved. And I'm going to give you just one example regarding this element. So we usually say, look, we have to change the methods of learning. It is written in the report and the recommendation of the European Commission, we have to improve the methods. But in order to improve the methods of teaching and learning, we have to convince teachers to be involved in the process. Because we cannot say, look, we cannot ask teachers to spend 2 more hours to get trained without paying them for those 2 additional hours. It doesn't work. We can have teachers that might do that on a voluntary basis, but if we want to have a bigger impact, we need to find a proper solution together with them, allowing them to allocate time to get trained, but also for them to also accept the methods, but also participate at the elaboration of those specific methods. And there are many examples like that you often discuss during your debates. I always, of course, pay very much attention to the input that you are giving us, and you will see a reflection of those inputs also in my amendments in the European Parliament. For instance, I have here 3 amendments that I registered on the resolution of the European Parliament on Europe's media in the digital decade, and my 3 strong amendments that got approved refer, 1, to the need to emphasize media education in education, and of course referring to quality education, how to develop digital and media skills from an early age. I also introduced an amendment regarding the support that should be given to media education programs and initiatives in universities. And I also refer, and this got approved as well, to the need to offer technical and financial support to this type of media literacy education. So again, it's good for me to be here. I'm going to listen to the different interventions, and you will certainly see that if I share your perspective, you will see that also being translated in my amendment and in my work in the European Parliament. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we're going to have an interesting debate on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Negrescu.
I wanted to encourage you to choose your level. So the idea is that if you represent a national or maybe Europe-wide organization, the level that I'm going to be talking about of research methodology might interest you most. So you can get to know an innovative digital survey tool which allows participants to indicate an age span in which they consider an activity useful, also to record practice. So this has a lot to do with what Victor said about continuous evaluation. So you will get to know the media maturity matrix. And if you represent an educational institution or kindergarten, school, something like that, you might get interesting information on how to structure a curriculum. And I'd want to keep the expectations low on this, but there's a lot, it's hidden now from view, but there's a lot of inspiration for practice in case you're just a teacher or a parent, a practitioner in education in the digital age. And if all 3 apply to you, I saw in my data collection that there are some multiple issues there, then you'll just have to do some serious multitasking. Okay, let's start with a quote on the method. We're aiming to develop hypotheses about a research topic. you should really also look at which methods have already been used to investigate it. Thank you. So we're going to look a little bit at our Mündig study, Media Maturity. Mündig comes from German Mündigkeit und Digitalisierung, so maturity and digitization. And I'm holding up a part of the first part has been translated into English. Each one of you is very welcome to take that with you when you leave. So don't forget to pick up the report. I'll be very brief on kind of the basic layout of the study. We asked Montessori, Waldorf, nature, outdoor educational institutions, alternative educational settings, and I'm presenting results from the Steiner Waldorf sample today. It was a quantitative explorative online survey using a questionnaire. This was conducted in 2019. We had around 1,000 teachers, 4,000 parents, and around 400 students participating in the survey. And what we find might not come as a surprise. That if we look at kindergarten, left side, kindergarten kids, and we look at education in the digital age, well, how are digital media being used in Steiner Waldorf kindergartens? Did you expect that? Hardly at all. That's like below 3%. So would that be different if we took age into account? We want to differentiate a little bit more. If we ask questions in a differentiated way, how about upper school? That doesn't look too good either. It's 16% of teachers that report carrying out these activities using digital screen media, either very frequently or this is accumulated quite often and very often measure. That's still not a lot. So let's take it one step further. We're going to ask, what purpose are they using the media for? I promised the kind of differentiated evaluation method. So now we're asking, what do you use it for? You operating and applying media, searching, judging, organizing information, communicating, cooperating, producing and presenting, analyzing, reflecting. And the last one, the yellow area, that's more ICT education, problem solving and modeling. And in case you're not familiar with this German nation-state Medienkompetenzrahmen, you should be familiar with European DigCom framework. And I've just included a table in the report that shows how they map onto each other. They're similar, but not completely, the same. So that's what's the outcome for upper school if you differentiate between these 6 different areas of purposes of media education. And you can see this bar, searching, organizing, judging information, is the highest one. I would have expected or wanted it to be producing and presenting, like the active part of it, but it's more receptive in the sense of judging, organizing, searching. And how about kindergarten? Nothing. Well, hardly anything. And I wanted to alert you to this, the fact that the answers we're going to get depend a lot on the method we're using. So if we extend the method now, because this European Parliament resolution from last March, I think it's also called the Negrescu report. So we'll take a look at Victor back there. It says that basically the E, whereas mastering basic transversal skills, that a lot of the fundamental prerequisites for the acquisition of digital skills and competencies are based in traditional teaching subjects, so that we turn away from this shuttered view. Digital education is when a child is sitting in front of a medium, a digital medium, widening it up. So what we did is we also asked about what analog media do you use in your educational setting, kindergarten or school. So let's have a look at the kindergarten results here. If we add the green bars. Yes, and that's uncovering that's the moment to lift the sheet, because here are some examples of analog activities to foster digital skills. And I put the sheet on there because from my point of view, a lot of the research on education in the digital age asks only this shuttered version of questions in the evaluation. So how about Wi-Fi? Are you equipped with tablets? How often do you use digital media? And you're going to get the result. You're going to find that nothing's happening, when in fact a lot seems to be happening, but you have not uncovered the sheet. The sheet, the white sheet, is kind of covering the analog part of digital or media maturity education. So now that's a question for you. I was expecting the green bars to go down and the purple bars to go up for upper school. This is kindergarten. And I was disproved. So this is all descriptive data, and I like it when I'm disproved. I had a different expectation. So in upper school, the green bars are twice as high. They didn't go down. And so this is analog media for media maturity education. And the purple bars kind of tripled or quadrupled. Interesting. Disproved my expectations. So that still is not wide enough. We've opened the shutters to include the analog ways. But how about, let's go to Negrescu report again, that the partnership with parents is really important. It hasn't been in there. We have not asked anything about how do you do parent evenings? Do you offer parents support? Do you have them participate in developing media curricula, etc.? It's not been asked. So we opened the shutters even wider, and we opened them to what Victor pointed out is very important, the prevention of digital risks. We don't only want skilled digital workers, we also want prevention of digital risks to avoid harmful behavior, it's saying here. So let's go back to the data. One step before we do that, about prevention of digital risks. I took this from a German topography of dangers. There are 32 different digital risks that children and adolescents could be faced with. So how about we introduce a prevention program for each of them? Would be great, wouldn't it? Like, just imagine the lesson plan. Monday, prevention of cyber addictions. Tuesday, fake news. Wednesday, data literacy. So, no, I'm just joking. I'm saying that if we seriously took this kind of cognitive-based turns and critical reflection approach to preventing digital risks, frankly speaking, there would probably not be time for children to learn how to read and write. So instead, let's focus on the common risk and protective factors. So for the early years of education, focus on what I've marked in red, the resource-oriented, non-risk specific approaches to health promotion and prevention. So in order to protect children from digital risks, life skills training. And just as a side remark, you might prevent things like drug addiction or alcohol addiction, etc. in the process, but let's just be happy about that. It's a kind of salutogenic approach to prevention. Multi-purpose prevention. Getting back to the descriptive data from the Mündig study, we found that this area of real-life empowerment to prevent digital risks is the one that almost 100% of teachers report they're doing that, kindergarten teachers. And parent counseling and cooperation, that's the right bar. I'm quite happy that half of the institutions say we do that. The pedagogical support. I'm not so happy about this tiny bar here. That's the technical support. Do we teach parents how to install things like time protection, filter software, etc.? No, it's not happening. Same thing for upper school. How about you already know the left part, but what's the right part of the presentation? It's almost the same. And we included one. So there are altogether 10 domains now. As you can see, I've not mentioned this one, teachers' use of digital media, and this one, helping children cope with adverse media experiences. So now we've opened the shutters, and I'm satisfied that we're really getting a good picture. I'm imagining this kind of evaluation method could be used, to measure impact, what is being done. And I'm slightly worried that we would be getting only the purple bars. Or at least if we had edtech companies decide on the survey method, we would only get the purple bars. The conclusion would be no digital education is going on. Let's change that. Let's buy more stuff. Let's have more Wi-Fi and more tablets and more everything. So I consider this a much more resource-oriented approach because it's actually asking what is there instead of saying what are the deficits, what's not there. Okay, so these are the more complicated figures from the report, but you will take that with you. I just skipped them. Okay, so let's turn to attitude. We've talked about the practice of teachers in the institutions. What type of media do they think should be used at what age? So this is a new survey tool that was programmed for us, and it allows you to say, what age should children paint or draw pictures on paper? What age should they create a website from scratch? What age should they make a flip book? You are all aware what a flip book is? Like that kind of thing? What's the right age span for a flip book, Victor? Yeah, like could a 10-year-old still make a flip book? Question mark. So we'll be asking you to report on that. And we get the results. This is about painting and drawing pictures. Everybody thinks it should be done starting at age 1, 2, 3, all through to age 18. Do you understand what the figure means? So same thing for another example activity, make a flip book. It has a peak around the age of Victor's son, 10 years, making flip books. Good idea to foster digital skills. How about presenting on the blackboard or with index cards, giving presentations? And these are all marked in green. These are analog activities. How about the digital activities you'd expect? Well, these are Steiner Waldorf educators. So you would expect the purple lines to go up later, which is true. Did you expect that? Yes. And some of them also earlier. Like the one about making a stop motion movie, I would personally move that even more to the front. We have very good experience even doing this with second, third graders. So maybe they're slightly too late, but let's not argue. This is descriptive results. Okay, now looking at who thinks this, I was hearing a lot that kindergarten teachers have very low technology acceptance. So these are kindergarten teachers. And the upper school teachers should have a higher technology acceptance. Let's put the upper school teachers below. Spot the difference. You will get a reward, a piece of chocolate, if you can spot the difference. No, there is no difference, or hardly any. If at all, the upper school teachers think that digital activities make sense slightly later than the kindergarten teachers. So this is a kind of measurement artifact, that it's actually the same attitude in the kindergarten teachers and the upper school teachers, only that the kindergarten teachers are teaching this group on the left and the upper school teachers are teaching the group on the right. Yes. So that's maybe the media maturity matrix explained in its benefits. We're asking during which developmental stage should which medium, analog or digital, be used for what purpose? It's a 3-dimensional matrix. And we add a 4th dimension to it, from whose point of view? Because it can be used equally for educational professionals, for parents, and also for upper school students, which we did. So these are the parent results. It looks kindergarten parents, upper school parents. Again, I would offer a piece of chocolate to those who spot the difference. We didn't find a difference. So then we asked the pupils too. And it was almost the same, maybe slightly earlier. You see that? Like 1-2 years earlier. And I had a colleague who said, Paula, you know, this is going to be a real boomerang on the Steiner Waldorf people, because obviously you're indoctrinating people. Like, how could the Steiner Waldorf teachers indoctrinate parents and students to such a degree that they would have the same attitudes? And I said, don't you worry, because we posed the same questions to Montessori and outdoor education. So left is Montessori and the right is the nature outdoor education. And that's exciting because, no, it's not about indoctrination. It seems to be about a kind of, what do people think, who spend a lot of time thinking about what makes sense in education, what's age adequate. Maybe also just parents that watch small children, like what appears suitable for this child. And they are a special target group. I won't deny that. So they are usually these parents in Montessori, Waldorf, outdoor settings. They are, they show a very high degree of engagement. They think education is an important part of life. And also, we know from other studies that they usually have quite high academic training themselves. So it looks like if you ask highly academically trained people who take a high interest in child health and development, you would get this kind of picture. Start with the analog, then move to the digital. Okay, which takes me to our little experiment. And yes, I've got my data stick here. Thank you to all the people who participated in my data survey. I'm going to talk about like 3 principles of what this is about. The alternative education institutions, it seems they follow 3 principles. One is analog or screen-free before digital. We just saw that in these attitude bars. Then producing before consuming. And the third would be graspability before black box. So that's why I asked you to do the Mentimeter survey in an analog way, because some of you might be thinking, how would you do things like data literacy without having, a computer available? So we went back in history to Hollerith cards, edge punch cards. Do some of you still remember them from when you visited libraries? Edge punch cards. So with this, I could now find how many optimists are in this room. Wow, I like it. Seem to be many optimistic people. Okay, because I just insert my stick. And here we go. Seems like, 3 of you are non-optimists. I'm not going to read the names because of the data protection issue. Let's see how many of you have plenty of free time, because you might support the many important projects that are taking place here. And ta-da! None of you seem to have lots of free time, which is a pity. I would have asked you to join forces with us. So 1 second. I just received a phone call. There's a company that's interested in buying this data set. So I hope you agree. Could we sell the data? No, I'm just playing like we're in a lesson with 8th graders. Would you agree that we sell this to the company? Do you know what they would answer? They usually say, no. Why not? Because my name is on the top. So I just got another little message from the company saying that we can cut off the names. Pseudonymize the data. Cut it off. Would you be willing to sell it? Now we're talking. now we're seriously into this issue of not only kind of data literacy, but critical big data literacy. Do I want a company to have these kind of connections? People who are optimists, do they more often think this topic is important? People who have a lot of free time would be, unfortunately none here, but they would be very interesting for marketers, because you've got a lot of free time to spend. So this was just like a 3-minute excursion to, believe me, it's possible to do digital education, high quality digital education, without having to spend a lot of money or without feeding a lot of funding into the greedy throats of huge multinational media corporations, because they would not profit from this. I mean, the children in their development would profit from it. And I think that applies to a lot of the other examples that I've brought. So in case you're kind of practitioners or school leaders, do take a look. And I'm going to show this suitcase, because we bring educational technology to schools. But it's the other meaning of educational technology. It's that kind of stuff. Because sometimes they don't have it. We would really like to have it. We saw it in the training, and we are training trainers, but then we also want to facilitate it be to practice. So schools can, it's traveling to Poland and Hungary, and it's been to recently to Finland. Okay. So I wanted to ask a little bit, like, we've been describing what's going on in these alternative educational settings. Is that an attitude we want to change because it's outdated? Or is it an attitude that we should support because it makes sense in the light of the scientific findings we have on media effects on child development? So I'm just holding up this position paper. It's being translated into English now. For early childhood, we should allow these educational settings to keep doing what they're doing, which means not using digital education in the kindergarten setting. This is, I'm just going to read a tiny little bit from that. The lively interaction with caregivers and enabling the child's exploration of the environment are essential and sufficient for healthy development. You're not surprised, I guess, but this is just a recently published report of a group of experts on child development. So let's have a look at the older children. The recommended screen time, how much higher is the real screen time compared to the recommendation? It's, do you think twice as high? 3 times? Yep. So the correct answer is both is true. Twice as high was the case in 2014, and 3 to 4 times as high was the case during lockdown. So this is, I mean, it's hard, Arja, for European Parent Association, because I don't want to give a bad conscience to parents. It's happened to everybody. I have children. So it's just a fact. And how do we deal with this fact? That screen time, the red bars are screen time recreational use during lockdown. I didn't have any representative figures for use for school during lockdown, so that's the light red at the top. So here's a problem, too much screen time, which also feeds into why we think that if you want digital education to take place, but you don't want to increase digital risks while doing it, you really want to take a look at the analog options for teaching digital skills. Okay, let's have a look at the potentials. Victor was saying potentials and challenges were found during the lockdown phase. So digital remote learning in Germany. How much did children in Germany learn during the digital remote learning phase? Your educated guess? Well, unfortunately, if you think the very right corner is right, that's the case. Yes. And here's the study results. There were much higher decreases in competences in the children from socially disadvantaged backgrounds. And you all know this. It's a real problem, especially for the socially oriented parties. There was a big increase in educational inequality during the lockdown situation. So, well, not so good. But let's take a look at the Netherlands, because they were far better equipped than Germany. We have this problem in Germany. No digital devices were available. The teachers were not well trained to use them. Okay, I have to be quick. But in fact, the same is true for children in the Netherlands. And that's the study by Engel et al. Showing that it didn't make such a difference that there was more equipment or better trained teachers. So I just put in these slides because I know that Commissioner Maria Gabriel is hosting roundtable discussions on digital education. And when she says European edtech companies, she thinks exclusively about digital edtech companies. I don't think she ever saw any of this. It's like under the white sheet, completely covered. So in my, and the European edtech industry was very happy about this unprecedented acceleration of digitization in education. Though as an expert in video game addiction and its prevention, I'm not so happy about the increase in screen time. So if you allow the edtech companies to conduct the research, that will be the outcome. Just to compare it to the figures that you saw before, they will just say there are huge deficits. Let's buy more digital media and train teachers how to use them. I don't agree. I would love it if Maria Gabriel invited edtech in the broader sense and we could bring the red suitcase. How about that? So, closing remarks. I wanted to read you 2 quotes from alternative education authors. One is, "Humankind sleeps with all its inventions and achievements at the edge of an abyss. We must turn our gaze from the outside of the conquered world back to our retarded inside." Maria Montessori. And here's another one. I call it, the headline is "Unblack the Box." It's, in consciousness, one can live quite well if one just buys a tramway ticket, rides to the station to which one wants to go, if one receives a telegram without having any idea how it came about, without ever having seen anything of a Morse apparatus. For the ordinary consciousness, this is indifferent. But for that which takes place in the depths of the human soul, it is clearly not indifferent. A person in a world of which he or she makes use, like me using this computer, without a sense of, understanding how this works. That is like a person in a prison without a window through which she could look outside. He or she could look outside. I added the she. I gendered it because it's a very old quote from Steiner, and he likes to talk about mankind and he, but I kind of modernized it. So to conclude, I'm really looking forward to Márti's presentation, covering, I think, 3 of the challenges Victor mentioned, on how we are cooperating on a project to promote different approaches to fostering media maturity. And media maturity, I put the Tower of Media Maturity back there, that colorful thing, and you will see that the bottom stories of the tower are sensory motor integration and communicative abilities. The foundations for a fulfilled life in the digital age are not learned in front of screens. They are acquired in real life. Thank you very much.
So you move to Márti. I just want to ask Mr. Negrescu, Márti will be giving a 10-minute presentation. Can you stay that bit longer? Thank you very much.
I will try to keep to those 10 minutes and be brief. Thank you, Dorian. Lots of purposes. Just more. Yes. So I will also sit down because for me a very important medium or media, because I have two of them, are my hands. And if I stand up and have to hold the microphone, I can't use the full range of my media. So I'm going to talk to you about the HERMMES project, which is an Erasmus Plus partnership that we embarked on last April. And this HERMMES is not called HERMMES because we are messengers to the gods or something like that, or try to connect the mundane and the sacred, but because it is an acronym actually coined for us by Paula, and we do want to connect something, and that is which sometimes is only called real life and digital life, but I think it is much more integrated altogether than that. And it stands for Holistic Education, Resilience and Media Maturity in Educational Settings. So I will just give you a few numbers. And that, let's see. So first of all, this is a project, an Erasmus Plus Key Action 2 project, which was granted to us by the European Education and Culture Executive Agency. And we have the total funding of 400,000 euros for this, but I would like to mention here that it is, because this is co-funding is the basic idea. All the organizations who take part in this project also use own means for this. And we have 11 partners from 6 partner countries, but that doesn't give the full picture, because I think this is this point where Mr. Negrescu's idea of trying to be facilitators and activators comes in, where we try to have Europe-wide coverage, because we have organizations which work Europe-wide, and we even have one organization which has worldwide coverage. And we will, next to exchanging good practices and networking, we will also produce 5 tangible results at the end. So what is the main aim? This is, I'm going to read this to you. I don't usually read my slides, but I will just do this because without this, I don't think the project can be understood. So the goal of the HERMMES project is that at the end of their school career, pupils are media mature. They should be able to use the full range of analog and digital media for their own education, participation in civil society and the labor market. In addition, they should be able to sovereignly decide how much time to spend on digital tools, for which purpose, and always with a conscious and critical approach to the content shared or consumed through media. Thus, age-appropriate and development-oriented media education introduces digital technology in classrooms after children demonstrate adequate media maturity. What is very important here is that what already we heard from Paula, this full range of analog is digital, and digital is very important. And the term media maturity, which, and also the term media. As you also mentioned, we often think of media as digital media, while it is so much wider than that. And we use it in this project in this full sense of a means by which something is communicated or expressed.
and media maturity, and that is a quote from you, Paula, who defined a media mature adult is able to choose to spend time with or without screen media, according to which option best fits their personal goals and needs, and additionally knows how to use media in a limited, active, creative, and technically skilled way. And I think that sums up what our project is about. So what are our tangible results? We have started working on the project. It started on the 1st of April. And the first month we spent with networking with these 11 organizations and come to the same page and getting to know each other to really be able to work together for a common goal. And we have defined who will be in which working group now, and we have started working on our framework curriculum. A framework curriculum is something that should be adaptable and flexible to use in many countries and filled in according to the schools or so local, regional, or country level needs, given the situation in their own context. So we started working on that. And you can see here school policy guidelines. What is school policy guidelines? We are often asked, and I would just like to mention two things from that. And one, that it should show schools that many things that they are already doing is already media education, and that is not only for ICT teachers to give media or digital education, but it's a holistic approach that also involves already kindergarten teachers or people like English teachers who say, yes, but I don't have anything to do with media, and then to show them that they have everything to do with building up media maturity in children. The other issue is this working together, parents and teachers, schools and teachers, which I think also gives this extra level of interest within our project, how to get to the same page, how to help the children all around and not having different ideas at home and at school, to align those at least to some degree. There was also this question of Mr. Negrescu, who said training the teachers. So we will have, this is still a bit fluid, but most probably we will have an online basic training, which will be given for teachers and parents, because if we want to put them on the same page, then we need to do that together. And after that, we will specialize more for webinars for parents, but we also have this idea of train the trainer. So that's that advanced teacher training, where we would like people from countries to be able to work in their own country hubs and to multiply the effects of the project. Then we have here all the partners, and why I'm not going to describe who is whom now. I would just only like to say that we have a wide scope of partners. So we do have 3 parents organizations on the left there who take part in the project. We have, the European Council for Steiner Waldorf Education are the coordinators of the project. And so we have the Europe-wide reach, such as the European Parents Association and the European Network of Steiner Waldorf Parents. And we also have the International Association for Early Childhood Education, because we find this full range from early childhood till the end of secondary school important. We have 2 schools, because you can't work on a project for schools without schools. And we have 2 universities, because we want to have these synergies of all interested parties. And we also have pedagogical provider services, these 2. So this is the full range of our partnership. And yes, I just wanted to think, we didn't need analysis, but which I'm not going to present to you here, but the basic ideas was that anywhere we went to, it was always such a hot topic. Someone should do something about this media education. We should really be active in this. And we do have so much already. So how to collect that and combine them was very important. So collecting research and practice. And again, this issue of differences between school and home, which has been very important when we talk to parents within our organizations. And of course, the lockdown also gave this extra push to work on this theme. I would just like to say I love this picture. This is on the front page of that book that's there. We published a book on assessment, also from an Erasmus Plus project. And this balancing act of the theme of assessment, but we also find that all this media maturity and digital tools, digital skills is also a balancing act of great import. Okay, EU relevance. We took everything, so we are very familiar with the Digital Education Action Plan and the resolution, and we work with these EU ideas and embed them and take from them and give to them, because even that's not here, but in the revision of the DIGCOM framework 2.2, Paula and my colleague Dora took part in the community of practice on the topic of safety and well-being. So we are very familiar also with the DIGCOM framework. Then a few highlights. So yes, we do work on safety and protection and prevention and digital well-being, but embedded in all that we do. Then I mentioned it, and I will, I think, mention it many more times wherever I am, this parent-teacher cooperation, because I find it as a parent of four, also and the coordinator of a parent organization, I find it very important that it's seen as a common topic. Then we have this overarching from 0 to 18 years of age, how to build up this media maturity. And we have here the idea of inclusion, and we see inclusion not as inclusion per se as having the digital hardware, but also having every children to have the right to get media education that builds up to using the tools. And when I was this Monday at the opening event of the Lifelong Learning Week, Mr. Stefan Hermans, the Director Policy Strategy and Evaluation in DG Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, actually talked about this, that there is this little shift or away from, if we give enough hardware to pupils and software and IT knowledge and Wi-Fi, then everything will be fine. That there is this gradual shift of to build up the skills of the pupils to use those. And this shift in view ties really well with our ideas. And so that we need to equip the children and young people with skills to be able to use those digital tools in a responsible, media mature way. So this is our project. You will hear much more from us later. It's really exciting. I'm very enthusiastic, and I'm very happy to be able to take part in this. So thank you.
Professor Negrescu, would you like to say a few words before you have to go? And then we'll come back and see what we do with the program.
I use the hardware to write down a couple of the words. I think we should sit down.
Yeah.
So thank you again for those inputs, and very, very interesting. And I noted down a couple of key elements that I want to underline just as a final remark. So, which is also stressed in my report and in my work in the European Parliament. So, first of all, I think we have to explain to decision makers also here in Brussels that online education is not equal to digital education. There are two different things. So teaching in front of a screen is not equal to digital education, which implies a lot more than that. A second element, I think that needs to be stressed all the time. I know for you as insiders of the story, it seems quite weird, but I can tell you for a fact, after discussion with people also, the Commission and the Parliament, that we need to do that, is to explain that, of course, giving hardware, giving tablets to kids is not enough. So access to hardware and software is just part of the issue and doesn't resolve the problem. The goal is to teach students and pupils how to use hardware and software in a useful manner for them. So screen time or access to those technologies is good and needs to be done, because unfortunately there are many gaps and inequalities and problems in this regard. But also we need to develop this idea of good use, or using those technologies towards something or for something. What is the mean and what is the goal of those technologies? And this also is something that needs to be explained very, very well, because of course, in the same time, we don't want to. This is my personal view. I don't want to oppose the evolutions and the introduction of new technologies, but we need to find the balance between how we can use that in a proper way, but also what is the role of schools and professors in this regard, because they do play a crucial role, and how to introduce and how to give professors a significant role in this sense of giving a scope to technologies. I think this is also something quite important. In the same time, I think during the pandemic, we didn't reflect enough on the issue of data protection. And again, I'm always mentioning that without criticizing. It's just the fact that 2/3 of European pupils during the pandemic used digital platforms that were non-Europeans, which safeguard the data outside Europe, which might not be a problem, but it's a fact that, of course, we didn't have, let's say, the national platforms across Europe, or we didn't have a European platform, and we didn't have, of course, tools adapted for education. In the same time, I think the hardware needs to be adapted for education. So giving a tablet is not enough, but a tablet that is where we have installed proper software, which limits access to different types of websites and so forth, is also needed. So we need to have software and hardware adapted for education. And this requires a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of expertise as well from educational experts in the same time. So these are a couple of elements that I wanted to underline in the same time. What is also important, and I saw that in Paula's intervention, and I underlined that in my report, is that we need to prepare youngsters for the use of the computer, for the use of technologies. And this needs to be done today at a very early age, and we need tools for that. Analog tools can be a solution, and we need to do that to prepare them for the digital environment, because they see a lot of things. Of course, they're attracted by digital element, and it's normal, it's natural, but we need to teach them on how to do that. And this is not happening easily. And if we are confronted again with the preconceived ideas, we tend to believe that young people will learn by themselves. Give them a computer, give them a tablet, give them a smartphone, they will learn. They will learn what? To use social media? This is not enough. And even using social media, most of them do not know how to use it properly or in a useful way for them. So we need, of course, to develop those skills at an early age. And what would be interesting to develop maybe in one of your studies as a final conclusion, we need, based on the general skills identified by the European Commission, we need to develop and identify the necessary pre-digital and digital skills required by young people at each age group. So by 4 years, by the age of 4, what type of skills do they need to learn? By the age of 6, what are the type of skills they need to learn in order for them, of course, to adapt to the evolution and learn all of that? So this is also quite important. And we need, of course, there are many analyses being done, also yours as well. but I think this also needs to be recognized officially by decision makers as a guideline, because we know it's not European competence, but I think we need those guidelines very clearly. And I think projects like yours are also very important in developing those tools, those guidelines, but also in showing how we need to do that. Because in your project, as I saw it, you developed that ecosystem that I was talking about, a small one, but a successful one that brought results. But we need to replicate those models in different places. And we need to learn from, again, what you managed to do, but also the problems that you faced. How difficult it was to identify the skills of each individual, how difficult it was to involve parents, for instance, how difficult it was actually for children to participate, and it took some time for them to participate. So all those things are lessons for us to integrate, because again, to actually do a reform of education, and you know that as well very well, it takes time. I know this is not attractive for politicians, because they will not win votes immediately due to that. But yeah, we have to explain them. I'm a professor as well, beyond being a parent. So I know very well that it's complicated. So we need to teach them patience, teach decision makers to listen as well, but also in the same time do the reforms that are necessary, because there is a need for modernization. And some things are already happening in Europe and across the world. And I think we need to be at the forefront of those evolutions also here in Europe. So thank you again for having me here, and I'm certain that I will learn more from you based on the conclusions that you are going to send us after this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. 10 minutes left, so we're going to have to change the program slightly. These are for, they're on your chair. These are for questions you would still like to ask, but there isn't time to ask them. So if you put your questions there, we'll look through them afterwards and do an analytical study and see what questions have still remained in your mind after you've heard the presentations today. So this is your little bit of homework that you can do in the next 10 minutes as we move on to the end. Meanwhile, Arja and Simona, would you like to come and, because reflections at the last 10 minutes. Yeah. And we'll do this. This is multitasking.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. So my name is Arja Krauchenberg, and I represent the European Parents Association, and we are also part of the HERMMES project. I'm also vice president of the Lifelong Learning Platform, and I'm sort of sitting here with two hats on. Let me take the parents' hat first. First of all, thank you very much to Paula for this very interesting study and this very interesting presentation. I think in the bottom of our heart, we knew that it's not only about screens, but that you can learn computational thinking also without the device, especially my generation that did not grow up with digital devices. We brought to the table a certain number of skills and competencies that allowed us to enter the digital age on the fly, if you like, because we were not taught. We were not taught at school, So this is not a possibility for young people any longer. They grow up with the devices around them. They cannot avoid it. And I have to say that during the pandemic, that has also been very helpful, because it allowed to keep in communication with other people, even if there was a certain, what we would now call a Zoom fatigue at the end of the story, but we were all happy to be able to connect and to have meetings, at least online, when meetings in person were not possible. So my grandmother used to say, there's a good thing in every bad thing, and vice versa. There's always two sides to a medal. Now, how do we keep that balance? And I think it is about balance and compromise for whatever we do in life when we talk about education. And all parents know that it's not about the extremes, that it is, and it's the most difficult thing to do, is to find what we would call the golden way in the middle. Extremes usually lead to a lot of destruction. Extremes might come up because people are so frustrated that they tend to go to the extremes. We see that also in some countries when people are not satisfied any longer with the democratic development. But going to a authoritarian system is also not a solution. Yeah, it is about communication. It is about human relationship, and that's about compromise. And we all know that learning only happens in human relations. So the media, digital tools are tools. And I think that's the most important point that we need to stress. But the essential point is still human relationships. And if you all think back to your own school career, when did you learn best? What did you learn most? It usually was when there was an inspiring person involved somewhere. Yeah? And I think that's what still counts, and that will continue to count. Now, how we integrate digital tools into this learning, we are still discovering. I mean, Christopher Clauder mentioned McLuhan. McLuhan talked about the Gutenberg galaxy and the changes that the printing of books brought about 500 years ago. And yes, we are probably at such a media change again. Yeah, we are playing in it. Yeah, it feels a little bit like being in the 16th century when all of a sudden books were printed and available for a certain number of people, because not everybody, of course, knew how to read and write. But it feels very exciting. But we are all new to this. Yeah? So we need to talk and we need to find our way, and we can only do that together. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So my name is Simona Petkova. I hope you hear me well. Okay, so my name is Simona Petkova. I am part of the Digital Education Unit in the European Commission, so the team that has been working on the Digital Education Action Plan that was mentioned earlier today. So thanks a lot for the invitation today. Thanks a lot for these very interesting insights, and I'm really looking forward to also learning more about the HERMMES project that is funded by the Erasmus Plus program. So I think we all agree here. We really, all of us we agree that how important it is to integrate digital technologies in age-appropriate and in really focused manner. And I really have to agree with what was said already by you, but also with the honorable member of the parliament, Mr. Negrescu. Digital technologies, putting the infrastructure, it is important, but it's really much more and very, very important to develop digital skills and competences. And this is really one of the priorities we have in our Digital Education Action Plan. With the action plan, we are reflecting on the COVID-19 crisis. I think it was said this, and I would really like to highlight what we saw with COVID-19 crisis. It was a good, maybe quick fix, emergency learning. We learned a lot from it. It was not what digital education should be about, but we really managed to see the gaps and the strengths and to really build on this. And this is what we are trying to do with the Digital Education Action Plan. It's a 7-year project, so it's really a long-term vision we have when it comes to digital transformation of education and training. And going back to my point on the digital skills development, I really would like to highlight that safe, informed, critical engagement of young people with digital technologies is really, really important. Digital tools are not disappearing, but young people really should have the skills, the competences, the knowledge, the critical engagement to feel safe online as well, to feel also empowered. We have so many good examples of civic engagement online. So it's really for young people to navigate confidently and safely. And if you allow me, I would like to highlight a couple of initiatives we have on our site under the Digital Education Action Plan. And the first one is actually guidelines for teachers and educators on tackling disinformation and promoting digital literacy. We heard a lot about addressing fake news, being safe online, teacher training as well. And I think this is a very good project that brings a lot of these topics together, because this is set of guidelines, a 40-page document, not more than that, that was developed by an expert group we put together. And the idea is to actually, I see a representative of O Digital who was part of this group. So the idea of these guidelines is really to provide hands-on and practical guidance for teachers, how to address topics, disinformation, to build critical engagement, critical thinking in the classroom. And actually, if you allow me, I would like to highlight that the different activities provided, learning tips or general tips and guidance for teachers include also the use of analog and unplugged activities. So it's not always about only the interaction with the digital tools and the screens. And actually, even though these are guidelines for teachers, I think what we see is a lot of interest, appreciation also from the parents. So they go beyond their main stakeholder group. So I would very much like to highlight the added value of this really new initiative we have in this field. Similarly, I had in my notes on the digital competences framework and the fact that well-being and health and the ability to identify balance between online and offline experiences is highlighted there. So I would really like to stress that at European level, we see the importance of these competencies being part of what it means to be digitally competent in 21st century. And last point I would like to highlight, and we heard from the Parliament, I'm presenting the work to the Commission, but actually earlier this week, only on Monday, the Council adopted Council conclusions on supporting well-being in digital education. So the Ministers of Education from the Member States agreed on conclusions on this topic, which is the first time they actually discuss well-being in digital education. And I'm not going to go into a lot of level of details, but this document, I encourage you to have a look. It reflects a lot about the importance of developing skills, learning environments that are promoting well-being, and also the interpersonal relationships, because it's really about the people at the end of the day. And on our side, of course, as a Commission, we're looking how to reflect this in our further work and the conclusions coming up from the Council. And what has been done, that I covered very briefly. What comes next? Next year, we are going to adopt the proposal for Council recommendation on improving the provision of digital skills and competences. This is going to be one of our main deliverables in the beginning of 2023. And I think this discussion today, it's been very, very useful, very insightful for us. And I'm happy to see how we can integrate it further in our work. So I end here. So thank you very, very much for this discussion, and congratulations on this event.